Welcome to the Ken Hill Podcast. Wow, I appreciate everybody taking the time to tune in and listen, and I appreciate the people that have written in and told me about their experiences with how things are working by listening to the podcast. So it's very, very motivating, and I very much appreciate it. All right, so let's kind of jump into a little bit of housekeeping here, which is one. I apologize for taking so long for this get another podcast out, and as much as I enjoy doing them, behind the scenes there is a lot that goes on to be able to get these done for you in the way that I want them to be done. Because it'd be super easy to just do a podcast where I sit there and talk, bring a guest in and talk for an hour and a half, and then guess what? You just don't get anything done, right? You listen, it takes you 3 days to listen to the thing, and it's not what I want to do, right? I want to give you something that you can actually go do and execute and figure out why, and be able to share this bitchin' sport. And so that's why they do take longer sometimes, is because I am trying to get my message very, very pointed, instead of having a podcast where you get 25 minutes in and I haven't even talked about shit. So, all right. So this podcast, why and how riding a dirt bike can help you in your riding. First of all, oh my gosh, dirt bikes are so much fun. They're so much fun. And I'm going to preface this with why are we going to ride a dirt bike, and how's that going to make you a better rider no matter what riding you do? And it's being able to practice in an environment that has less grip. That's it. And now I want to go backwards a little bit, which is talking more about our sport, and realizing that if you want to get good in the sport, and good means having a pathway for whatever your individual success looks like, right? Whatever your individual goal is, to achieve that success, you have to train, you have to practice. Or you're just going to be that same rider, and then you're going to have these pitfalls and these mistakes, and a very difficult, arduous learning curve. And instead of having something that continues to build, and I think that's something that we need to recognize, especially in our sport. We don't spend enough time getting good in this freaking environment that we have now, where you go on YouTube and you watch everybody perfecting everything or having a personal best. And if you go for a bicycle ride, you don't meet your best Strava segment, or go to the gym and do whatever at your personal best, you feel like you're a failure. No, it's complete and utter bullshit. To get great at something, you have to be good first, and you have to work on that. And it's so hard because when you look at the way the learning curve works, sort of that plateau or adaptation stage lasts the longest. Embrace that. Absolutely, positively embrace it, because the more you embrace it and the more you understand it, the better you're going to get. So, yeah, I want you to be great, but you got to get good first. That's all there is to it. So this is part of getting good. And the reason that I'm going to be fairly uncompromising with this is because of the consequences of our sport. Could you imagine you miss a putt and you break your wrist? You're late on a work deadline, and now you have a broken tib fib. So, I hate to put it in those terms, but we have to think about the consequences of our sport. And everybody thinks sort of about what the best scenario is. There's times where we need to think about what the worst scenario can be and how we're going to train and mitigate for that. So anyway, all right, how do dirt bikes fit into that? Well, I'm going to tell you. So we don't have access to tracks, and we don't have access to all these perfect roads all the time, right? There's all these different things that are going on. There's expense, there's time, logistics. So being able to train with something that is a lot more accessible, dirt bikes allow that to happen. And the other point that I'm going to make on this is, training on a dirt bike, yeah, we're going to train on something that has less grip, but people also have a tendency to make this way too complicated. you don't necessarily need a brand new, YZ450 to go out there and do these things. And in some ways, not that I'm not advocating that, because I think everybody should have a dirt bike and go, play with dirt bikes because they're super fun. But we want to put ourselves in a position to be able to ride something and be able to approach the limits of whatever that is. And for the people that have never ridden an 8 horsepower, whatever, TTR 125 or XR 100 or whatever it may be, you will be shocked at how scared you're going to be over 8 horsepower. And this was the reason I bring this up. This was a fairly common theme that I saw a lot over the summer. Working with riders, brand new BMW 1000 or a year-old BMW 1000, and or whatever the leader bike may be, and literally scared to ride it, or riding it so horribly from poor technique and not respecting what that bike does. So it's easy to get into your over your head with that. So learning to ride something that is much slower and allows you to be able to ride it to the bike's limits, this is going to make things, oh gosh, it's going to make your life much more comfortable when it comes time to ride the bigger bikes. So, all right, dirt. First part of it is, we want to be able to train and practice in an environment where there's less grip. There's less overall speed involved in most cases. And, with that typically comes less risk. Yes, of course you can get hurt on a dirt bike. I certainly have. But overall, there's just a lot less going on there. And of course, we always want you to wear the right gear and practice all the proper safety protocols. It's fantastic exercise. I mean, it's just fantastic exercise. So whether you're riding motocross or trail riding, or doing 1,000 laps on a little dirt track, oh my gosh, it's great exercise. You learn how to build feel. You learn new environments and be able to do them quicker. And it's also a repetitive environment, and that's what really shortcuts the learning curve. The way that I got into this and the way that I teach my dirt schools was from experiencing at the Freddie Spencer School as an instructor. Third day we would ride dirt bikes. And part of it was that it was basically a Grand Prix for the instructors. The big takeaway was we put our road racing language or our track riding language into the dirt. So how we looked at an apex, how we looked at a reference point, how we looked at the slowest part of the corner, how all these different things, we just put them in a low grip environment. We were not teaching you how to be a dirt track rider. I am not teaching you how to be a dirt track rider. No, I'm teaching you how to be a better road racer, better track rider in an environment that has less grip. And something that we can spend all these laps training for. Let me give you some examples. And we're going to go into some of the specifics of some of these other, each one of these riding disciplines and talk about some of the things that you can do with those. In working with JD Beach, and I'm again blessed to work with some riders at the very, very sharp end of the sport. And with JD, before JD would ride turn track, and for they call it turn track, and turn tracks where they ride 450s on basically a non-motocross type of a track, right? It's the big flowing track. It's got some uphills and downhills, but basically there's no jumping. And JD would text me in the morning. He's going to ride and say, "Hey, what am I working on today? Okay, you're going to work on this. You're going to work on that." And then end of the day, we would check in. A couple things happened with this. One is one of the things that we're working on with JD was some initial breaks and end of braking and getting him just to take it to the next level with that. And even at his level of riding, and even though we've been talking about brakes for 5 years, it wasn't really until this summer that he was able to intake this and then be able to go execute what we're talking about with proper initial brake pressure. But he did it in an environment that he could go practice, right? Because we just don't get that environment and practice. You're not going to learn a new fundamental, under pressure at a Moto America weekend. It just doesn't work. So he was able to play around with this a little bit and figure it out. And huge breakthrough was in his initial breaks riding dirt this summer. The other thing that we did is, depending on when the race schedule was falling, I would have him pre-ride the race track that he was going to. So, for instance, the entry of the carousel at Sonoma, we would pick a corner on his track, we'd run it a different direction, whatever it may be, and we'd say, this is the carousel. Let's picture that and visualize that as a carousel. So when he got there, guess what? He's already done it. It's already done. He's already figured it out, and he knows what he needs to do. Same thing with the chicane. We worked on the chicanes a lot. So when he got to the chicanes at Sonoma, done. They're already there. So we specifically put him in, okay, how's your initial brakes going to be? Where do your eyes go? How does your core get tightened up, and when does it get tightened up for that particular environment? So that's how we use it with those guys. And of course, there's other things that we'll work on, we'll talk about in just a minute. So really great way of being able to train for your particular environment as well. So the dirt schools that I do, the first thing that we're really going to think about with those schools is, and we typically will hold them on an oval, or we'll do a very, very small turn track, is the main part of it for most of the riders is being able to feel traction and be able to then manipulate traction. Notice what I said: feel traction, then manipulate traction. So we'll do specific drills so they learn some feel. We'll do braking drills in the dirt to find out when the front tire locks up, and you'll be shocked at how much grip it actually has by applying the brakes correctly. So we'll work on that, and then of course it's being able to manipulate the grip as well. And then we'll go into drills, and the drills are really, really fun. And the way that the drills will work is we do them same way as we would do them, going through my objectives and going through my order of the sport. We start with direction. What does direction look like? And we talk about apexes, how to define apexes. And then we, of course, start looking at reference points. We look at the slow point of the corner, and we can start working on our motor controls, initial brakes. We actually do some drills as well as we actually add brake pressure at tip in, so we can start to go back to feeling what that grip is like, feeling what the front tire is working is like, and then again starting to manipulate grip. Of course, we'll work on some things with initial throttle, and being able to stab the throttle on 8 horsepower. You can get away with it. Yeah, except for when there's no grip or you're leaned over, and then you'll be shocked at how crazy slow initial throttle has to be. So we'll work on that. We'll work also a lot on eye timing, put out some very specific reference points that have to be identified. And then we really get into the brake timing. We'll make big entry corners, big exit corners. And all of this comes back, and that's what equals feel and direction, right? All those different things. So this is all done on an oval, a little oval with a 15 or 14 second lap time. All of this can be done there. So it doesn't take a crazy environment on an 8 horsepower bike to make this happen. And pretty cool. Again, it's just a pretty cool training environment. And then from there, you're like, okay, well, great. I don't have an XR100. I don't have an oval track or dirt track. What do I do? I can go trail riding. Man, there's so many different things you can do with trail riding. Cool thing with trail riding, I'll give you an example, was also one of the other Kentucky boys, Jake Lewis, super bike rider. Jake and also JD and Nick, I think Nick McFadden as well, they do a bunch of hair scrambles in the off season. Great exercise. And of course, these guys are very, very quick. But one of the biggest comments they had over these long races was being able to use their eyes better. Because you're not pre-running courses, you don't know the track, right? So you don't know. So being able to use your eyes, and especially being able to use your eyes as the race wears on and you get tired. So something that they worked on was there. Also, as soon as they used too much arms, then of course their arms would get fragged and they had to go back to lower body. So even in trail riding, man, you can learn a new environment. You can use your eyes. You can establish direction. Your initial your initial brake usage, your end of brake usage, your initial throttle, your outside thigh for core engagement. It's all there. It's all there. So trail riding, you can do this. Very much same with motocross, except that you get to run laps and you get used to your environment. Entry corner, exit corner. Where's the slow point? Inside line, out. I mean, you can do all these different things, all with track riding or road racing verbiage. That's pretty much it. And of course, motocross. For road racers, I definitely don't. I'm not a fan of motocross. No air, kind of hard for some of these guys, but we see more injuries with guys getting caught out with air. Yeah, I know it's fun. Yeah, you may have a motocross background, but man, we see more careers screwed up with catching air. So my 2 cents there. Boy, even trials. We look at trials. Man, reference points, motor controls, balance. It's all right there. The speed's not even involved in there, but there's so much that goes on with there. Your body and your core engagement and how you use your feet. Oh, it's all there. Even same thing with Supermoto. Supermoto is interesting where I love Supermoto, super fun. Supermoto is really good for all those things that I talked about with brake pressure and throttle and exits and reference points and all those different things. But Supermoto, I found, has a tendency to make you a little bit lazy, and so I'm a big fan. We've started a couple years ago now. Instead of riding Supermoto bikes on, say, go-kart tracks, we're riding like a Ninja 300 or an R3. And now the reason being is that you're replicating the same body movements, and that also is something that helps shortcut time when you get to the road race bike. So it's easy to get pretty lazy with the Supermoto bike. I've ridden them a bunch, and I know I certainly get that way as well. So, all right, dirt bikes, get one, ride it, and start putting yourself in a position to learn some of these things and realize that what we're trying to accomplish with a dirt bike is enhance our sense of grip, right? Feeling traction and being able to manipulate traction. And it's such a great learning curve for that. The other thing that it can do is, again, is we put ourselves in a position to either, say, do dirt track. We have all those different references that we looked into that we can work on, and it literally becomes limitless. Front brake only, rear brake, feet up, all those different things that start to get into that. And it is just one of the best ways to shortcut your learning curve for a very deliberate thing. You want to get good at front end feel? Go work on front end, your brake pressure at turn in on the dirt track. Do it 10,000 times and then see where that ends up taking you. Slowest point of the corner. You want to understand slowest point of the corner? Work on slowest point of the corner. And here you get to be able to do it every 6 seconds on a little oval. So makes a big difference there. So I'm just a big fan of the dirt bikes and what they're able to accomplish for our road riding. And regardless of what environment you're in or what discipline you're in, man, you can take advantage of all these things and take you to the next level in your track riding. So there you go.